The crystal chamber was silent except for the soft humming of the vote-counting machines. Ambassador Jin-Ho Park stood at the human delegation table, his hands folded behind his back. Around him sat representatives from 47 different alien species, all waiting for the final numbers. Jin-Ho had been Earth's voice in the Galactic Council for 12 years. He had seen many votes, but none like this one. Today, the Council was deciding whether humans should be allowed to keep developing their technology freely. The motion on the table was clear: restriction of human military technology development and mandatory sharing of jump drive innovations. To Jin-Ho's left sat Woojin Kim, Earth's top scientist. Woojin's face was calm, but his fingers drummed quietly on the table. He knew what this vote really meant. The other species were afraid of how fast humans learned and grew. When humans first joined the galactic community 200 years ago, they were the newest and weakest members. Most aliens thought humans would stay that way forever, but humans surprised everyone. They learned alien technology quickly, then made it better. They built faster ships, stronger weapons, and most shocking of all, they created truly thinking artificial minds. The vote-counting machine beeped. A blue hologram appeared above the center of the chamber, showing the results. 46 votes for the motion. 1 vote against. Only humanity had said no to their own restrictions. A cheer went up from many of the alien delegates. The tall, insect-like klaxons clicked their mandibles in satisfaction. The gas cloud ethereals pulsed with happy colors. Even the robot-like Nexus Collective flashed approval lights. Queen Vexithera of the klaxon stood up. Her voice was sharp and metallic through the translation device. Today we have secured galactic peace. The human expansion of dangerous technology will finally be controlled. More cheers filled the chamber. Jin-Ho noticed how the aliens looked at the human delegation. There was fear in their eyes, but also satisfaction. They thought they had won something important. Behind Jin-Ho, Mira Choi sat quietly. She was Earth's technology advisor, a small woman with bright eyes who understood machines better than most people understood themselves. Her hand rested on a strange device wrapped around her wrist. The device had been glowing softly blue all during the meeting. Now Mira touched it gently and the blue light faded. The klaxon queen was still speaking. For too long, humans have developed weapons and ships without proper oversight. They create artificial minds without understanding the dangers. They push the boundaries of what is safe and responsible. Jin-Ho almost smiled at that. Humans did push boundaries. It was what they did best. While other species spent centuries debating each small change, humans tried new things, failed, learned, and tried again. It made the older species nervous. Coordinator HFY of the Ethereals floated forward. The gas being's voice was like wind through leaves. We do not wish to harm human development. We simply wish to guide it properly. Humans are young and need the wisdom of older species. Several aliens nodded agreement. They saw themselves as wise teachers and humans as dangerous children who needed strict rules. Jin-Ho finally moved. He stood slowly, his movement drawing attention from across the chamber. The talking stopped. Even the ethereal coordinator settled back to listen. The Terran Federation has heard the will of the Galactic Council, Jin-Ho said. His voice was steady and clear. You have voted to restrict our technology development. You have voted to take our innovations and control how we use them. He paused, looking around the chamber. You have made your choice about humanity's place in this council. The aliens waited. Some looked satisfied, thinking the humans would now bow to the decision. Others looked worried. They knew humans could be unpredictable. The Terran Federation hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately, Jin-Ho continued. We thank you for clarifying where humanity stands in your galactic order. The chamber erupted. Some aliens shouted in surprise. Others demanded explanations. A few tried to call for order. But Jin-Ho was already moving toward the exit. The human delegation followed him. Woojin Kim gathered his papers calmly. Mira Choi smiled slightly as she stood, the dead device on her wrist catching no one's attention. Other human diplomats and scientists filed out behind their leaders. Wait, called Coordinator HFY. This is hasty. We can discuss terms. Jin-Ho stopped at the chamber doors. He turned back to look at the confused aliens. For 2 centuries, we tried to be good members of this council. We shared our discoveries. We followed your rules. We asked for nothing but the freedom to grow and learn. His voice grew quieter, but somehow everyone could hear him clearly. Today you told us that freedom is too dangerous, that human creativity must be chained, that our ideas belong to you, not to us. He shook his head slowly. We understand your message. Now please understand ours. Goodbye. The human delegation left the chamber. Behind them, chaos erupted as 46 different species tried to argue about what had just happened. In the corridor outside, Mira Choi walked beside Jin Ho. She looked down at her wrist device, now completely dark and silent. How long? Jin Ho asked quietly. The disconnection started the moment I shut down the interface, Mira replied. Their jump drives will start failing within hours. Full cascade failure across the galaxy within 3 months. Wu Jin Kim caught up to them. Are you sure about this path? Once they realize what's happening, there will be no going back. Jin Ho nodded. They made their choice when they voted to chain us. Now they'll learn what it means to try to cage human innovation. The human ships were already powering up in the station's docking bays. Earth's delegation would be home within hours, traveling on jump drives that worked differently from everyone else's. Jump drives that had always worked differently, in ways the aliens had never noticed or understood. As their ship pulled away from the council station, Jin Ho looked back at the massive structure. Soon it would just be a floating monument to the day the galaxy learned that some gifts came with prices no one had expected to pay. Mira Choi was already working on her next project, humming softly as she typed. Humans had learned long ago that the best way to deal with closed doors was to build new ones. The aliens would understand that lesson soon enough. 3 months had passed since the humans left the Galactic Council. Most aliens had forgotten about their dramatic exit, assuming it was just another human temper tantrum. They thought the humans would come crawling back within weeks, begging to rejoin. Captain Taemin Lee of the Vegan Trade Consortium learned differently. His cargo ship, the Star Cutter, was making a routine run from Vega Prime to Alpha Centauri. It should have been a simple 4-hour jump through hyperspace. Taemin had made this trip hundreds of times. The route was so safe and easy that junior pilots used it for training, but something was wrong. The Star Cutter dropped out of hyperspace halfway through the jump. Emergency lights flashed red across the bridge. The jump drive, which had worked perfectly for 15 years, was completely dead. What happened? Taemin asked his engineer, a young klaxon named Click 29. Click 29's insect-like head turned toward the captain. Unknown, sir. All readings show the drive should be working, but it's as if the hyperspace field just disappeared. Taemin frowned. Run full diagnostics. Maybe something broke. 3 hours later, Click 29 had bad news. Sir, the drive tests perfectly. All components are working, but it can't connect to hyperspace anymore. It's like hyperspace itself has changed. With no choice, Taemin ordered the ship to use normal space engines. The journey to Alpha Centauri took 8 days instead of 4 hours. When they finally arrived, Taemin found dozens of other ships in the same situation. Jump drives across the sector were failing randomly. On the council station, emergency coordinator HFY was having the worst month of their long life. Reports poured in from every corner of the galaxy. Jump drives failing. Quantum communicators going silent. Fusion reactors losing efficiency for no apparent reason. The problem seemed random at first. A trade ship here, a communication relay there. But the pattern was growing. Every day more technology stopped working. HFY called an emergency meeting of the council's top scientists. The best minds from 46 species gathered to solve the crisis. Dr. Yoon Ji-yoon was among them. She was human-born but had chosen to stay with the council when Earth withdrew. She believed in galactic cooperation and thought the humans had been too hasty in leaving. The failure pattern makes no sense, reported Chief Scientist Vorth of the Nexus Collective. Different technologies, different manufacturers, different planets. No common factors except one, Yoonji said quietly. The room turned to look at her. Eunji had been studying the failed systems for weeks. What she found scared her. I've traced the base code in every failed system, she continued. Deep down beneath layers of alien programming, there are human innovations. Human mathematical concepts. Human engineering principles. She activated a holographic display. Complex code filled the air above the table. Look at this jump drive algorithm. The base equations were developed by human scientists 50 years ago. We adapted them, modified them, made them fit our technology, but the core is human. Scientist Vorth's robotic voice was sharp. Impossible. Our jump drives are based on Klaxon crystal technology. Yes, but look deeper, Yunji said. She highlighted sections of the code. The crystals create the field, but the navigation calculations use human quantum mechanics. The power regulation systems use human efficiency algorithms. Even the safety protocols follow human design patterns. The room fell silent as the other scientists checked their own data. Slowly, horrible understanding dawned on their faces. How widespread is this? Asked Zephi. Yunji's voice was barely a whisper. Everything. Every major technological advance in the last 2 centuries has human elements hidden so deep we never noticed. It's not just jump drives. It's communication systems, power generation, life support, weapons, shields, everything. On Earth, Yun Wusong smiled as he read the latest intelligence reports. As Minister of Galactic Affairs, he was responsible for managing Earth's relationship with the galaxy. Right now, that relationship was very simple. Earth listened to desperate alien messages and politely declined to help. Another request from the Ethereal Collective, reported his aide, showing him a datapad. They're offering to pay us to fix their quantum communication network. What did you tell them? Hyunwoo asked, the standard response. The Terran Federation is focusing on internal development. We're sure the Council's brilliant scientists can solve these minor technical difficulties. Hyunwoo nodded. The response was polite but clear. Earth would not be helping its former allies. His aide hesitated. Sir, some of our own people are asking if we're being too harsh. The failures are causing real suffering. Hyunwoo's expression grew serious. And when we asked for simple freedom to develop our own technology, what did they say? When we requested equal treatment, what did we receive? He stood and walked to the window overlooking New Geneva, Earth's diplomatic capital. They had their chance to treat us as partners. They chose to treat us as children who needed to be controlled. Now they can live with that choice. Across human space, massive construction projects were expanding at incredible speed. Ships, stations, and planetary facilities grew daily. Without council restrictions, human innovation was exploding in all directions. So Young-an stood on the observation deck of the newest orbital shipyard above Mars. Below her, construction robots built vessels unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. These ships used pure human technology, free from the compromises needed to work with alien systems. How many operational this week? She asked her assistant. 47 new ships completed, 63 more starting construction. We're running out of dock space. So Young smiled. Then we build more docks, and more shipyards, and more everything. The assistant looked nervous. Ma'am, the aliens are getting desperate. Their trade routes are collapsing. Some species are talking about war to force us to help them. Let them talk, So Young replied. Wars require working ships and communication systems. They have neither. Back on the council station, Yoon Ji-yoon was making another disturbing discovery. She had been trying to reverse engineer human innovations, hoping to find a way to make alien technology work independently. But human technology was different from everything else in the galaxy. Other species built things logically, step by step, each part designed for a specific function. Human innovations seemed to leap from one idea to another in ways that made no sense. It's like they dreamed their technology into existence, she muttered, staring at equations that somehow worked, despite breaking several laws of physics. Her Klaxon colleague, Scientist Click 7, peered over her shoulder. Perhaps that is exactly what they do. Human brains operate differently from logical species. They make connections we cannot follow. Yoonji sat back in her chair. The terrible truth was becoming clear. The aliens could copy human blueprints, but they couldn't copy human creativity. They could use human innovations, but they couldn't make new ones. Without humans, the galaxy's technological progress had simply stopped. Outside the station, another ship dropped out of hyperspace unexpectedly. Its emergency beacon was already flashing red. Soon Yoonji knew the beacon would go silent too. Human innovations were everywhere, and one by one they were all shutting down. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. Some gifts came with prices no one had expected to pay. 1 year after humanity left the Galactic Council, the first partnership treaty was signed. The Lyran Collective had always been different from other alien species. Where most focused on logic and efficiency, the Lyrans valued art and beauty. Their crystal cities sang with harmonic frequencies, and their people created sculptures from living light. They were also the first to understand what humans were really offering. Hyejin Park, daughter of former Ambassador Jin Ho Park, stood in the great assembly hall of Lyra Prime. Around her, crystalline beings hummed in harmony as they discussed the treaty terms. As Earth's lead negotiator, she had spent months working with the Lyrans to create something entirely new. This partnership is unlike anything in galactic history, announced First Resonance Veltar, the Lyran leader. Instead of one species dominating another, we combine our strengths as equals. The treaty was simple but revolutionary. Humans would share their technological innovations freely with the Lyrans. In return, the Lyrans would share their harmonic sciences, which could enhance human technology in unexpected ways. Neither species would control the other's development. "But how do we know you won't leave us dependent again?" asked Second Resonance Morden, expressing the fear that haunted many aliens. Hyejin smiled. "Because we're not giving you our technology. We're teaching you how to think like humans." The concept shocked the assembled Lyrans. For centuries, aliens had believed that copying human innovations was enough. The idea of actually learning human thought patterns seemed impossible. "Human creativity isn't magic," Hyejin explained. "It's a way of thinking that can be learned. We make connections between seemingly unrelated ideas. We imagine solutions that don't exist yet. We dream bigger than our current limitations." She activated a small device that projected a holographic puzzle. "Try to solve this using pure logic." The Lyrans studied the three-dimensional maze of energy patterns. Using their traditional logical approaches, they calculated millions of possible solutions. None worked. "Now try this," Hyejin said. "Don't think about what the puzzle is supposed to do. Think about what it reminds you of. What does it look like? What feelings does it give you?" Third Resonance Kilwin, a young Lyran, tilted her crystalline head. "It looks like music that's trapped in the wrong key." "Then what would happen if you change the key?" Kylwin reached out and touched the projection, humming a simple melody. The energy patterns shifted, rearranging themselves into a perfect harmonic structure. The puzzle dissolved. "That's human thinking," Hyejin said. "You found a solution by making a connection between a mathematical puzzle and music. Logic alone couldn't solve it." Back on Earth, Jiwan Kang was working with representatives from 12 different species. As cultural liaison director, she helped aliens understand not just human technology, but human culture and thinking. "The key is imagination," she explained. To a mixed group that included insectoid klaxons, gaseous ethereals, and cybernetic nexus units, humans don't just solve problems. We reimagine what problems could be. A klaxon representative, Worker Prime Zektor, raised a clawed hand. "But imagination is inefficient. It wastes time on impossible solutions." Jiwan nodded. "Sometimes, yes. Humans fail a lot. We try things that don't work. We pursue dead ends, but occasionally we discover something completely new." She showed them historical examples. "When humans first saw alien jump drives, we didn't just copy them. We imagined what would happen if we made them smaller, faster, more efficient. Most of our ideas failed. But the ones that worked changed everything." The ethereal representative, Shimmer of Dreams, pulsed with interest. "You accept failure as part of success?" "We require failure as part of success," Jiwan corrected. "Every failed experiment teaches us something. Every impossible dream shows us a new direction to explore." This concept was spreading across the galaxy as more species signed partnership treaties with Earth. The geometric minds, masters of mathematical precision, learned to combine their calculations with human intuition. The result was computational systems that could solve problems no one had even thought to ask. The ocean dwellers of Aquatica partnered with human marine biologists. Together, they developed biotechnology that could heal entire ecosystems. Humans provided creative biological solutions, while the ocean dwellers contributed their deep understanding of life in extreme environments. But not every species was ready for partnership. The Krex Empire still refused to admit they needed help. General Thokvar, military leader of the Krex, declared that his people would solve their technological problems through conquest rather than cooperation. "We will take what we need from the humans," he announced to his war council. "We are warriors, not beggars." The problem was that Krek's ships could barely reach their own star system's outer planets. Their weapons couldn't power up properly. Their communication systems failed randomly. An empire built on military strength found itself unable to fight anyone. Minister Min-Su An, Earth's Director of Interspecies Innovation, received reports of Krek's military preparations with amusement rather than concern. "They're planning to attack us with ships that can't jump to hyperspace," he told the Earth Defense Council. "Their weapons run on human-designed power systems that stopped working months ago. They're essentially threatening us with very expensive paperweights." Defense Coordinator Tae-Young Kim was less amused. "Should we take preventive action?" "No need," Min-Su replied. "Let them try. When their invasion fleet breaks down halfway to Earth, maybe they'll finally understand that cooperation works better than conquest." The predicted Krek's invasion lasted exactly 6 hours. Their fleet of 200 warships managed to travel 1 light-year from their home system before every ship's jump drive failed simultaneously. Stranded in empty space, they had to send a humiliating distress call requesting rescue. Earth responded by sending aid ships staffed by human volunteers and Lyran partners. Instead of capturing the Krek's fleet, the rescue teams offered food, medical aid, and free transport home. General Thokvar found himself face-to-face with Captain So Min-yoon, a young human officer who had been born after humanity left the Council. "Why?" the general asked. "We came to conquer you. Why do you help us?" So Min smiled. "Because that's what partners do. We help each other, even when one of us makes mistakes." She gestured around the rescue ship, where humans and Lyrans worked together to repair Krek's systems. "Look around, General. See how we work together? No one gives orders to anyone else. We each contribute what we do best." The general watched as a human engineer collaborated with a Lyran harmonic specialist to restore power to a Krek's ship. The human provided creative problem-solving while the Lyran contributed mathematical precision. Together, they accomplished in hours what neither could have done alone in weeks. "This is what partnership looks like," So Min continued. "Not one species ruling others, but all species growing together." By the end of the rescue operation, 3 Krek's ships had requested permission to stay and learn more about human-Lyran cooperation. General Thokvar himself asked for a formal meeting with Earth's leadership. The galaxy was slowly learning a new way to work together. Instead of the rigid hierarchy of the old council, partnerships formed based on mutual benefit and respect. Species contributed their unique strengths without giving up their independence. But the biggest test was still coming. Because while the EEI galaxy was learning to cooperate, something else was watching from the dark spaces between stars. Something that saw the galaxy's weakness as an opportunity for conquest. The real challenge of the new partnerships was about to begin. 3 years after humanity left the Galactic Council, the galaxy faced its greatest threat ever. The warning came from the edge of known space. Long-range sensors detected something massive moving through the void between galaxies. Ships, but not like anything anyone had seen before. They consumed everything in their path, converting matter and energy into more ships. The Void Collective had arrived. Commander Tae-Young Kim stood in the command center of the new Geneva Defense Station. Around him, representatives from 37 different species worked together to coordinate the galaxy's response. There was no single leader, no hierarchy. Instead, each species contributed what they did best. "How long until they reach the outer systems?" asked Hae-Jin Park, who now served as diplomatic coordinator for the cooperative networks. 6 weeks, at their current speed, replied sensor specialist Veltar of the Lyrans. Her crystalline form pulsed with harmonic calculations. "But they're accelerating. They gain speed by consuming stellar matter." The threat was unlike anything the old Galactic Council had faced. The Void Collective didn't negotiate or trade. They simply consumed entire star systems, converting everything into more ships for their endless fleet. Under the old system, this threat would have caused panic and infighting. Each species would have argued about defense strategies while protecting their own interests first. Critical weeks would have been wasted on debates and political maneuvering, but the cooperative networks responded differently. "What do we know about their technology?" asked Dr. Min-Soo Ahn, who had become the galaxy's leading expert on combining different species innovations. A Nexus Collective Unit, designation Unity 7, projected a holographic analysis. Their ships appear to be semi-biological. They adapt to weapons used against them. Conventional attacks become ineffective within hours. "Then we need unconventional attacks," said Captain So Min-yoon. She was now commanding the fastest ship in the galaxy, a vessel that combined human engineering, Lyran harmonics, and geometric mind mathematics. The solution came from an unexpected source. Kyle Wynn, the young Lyran who had learned human thinking patterns, made a connection that no one else had considered. "What if we don't fight them directly?" she suggested. "What if we change the rules of engagement entirely?" She activated a new display showing the Void Collective's movement patterns. They consume matter and energy. But what if we gave them something they couldn't consume? Something that would confuse their absorption systems? Human physicist Eugene Lee immediately understood. Paradox matter. We've been experimenting with particles that exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. It's matter that technically isn't matter. "And I can create harmonic fields that exist between dimensions," added Veltar. "Energy that isn't really energy." The collaboration that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Humans provided creative problem-solving and breakthrough thinking. Lyrans contributed harmonic sciences that could bend reality. Geometric minds offered mathematical frameworks that made impossible calculations possible. Even former enemies like the Krex Empire contributed their military tactical expertise. The result was the Paradox Fleet. 50 ships that shouldn't have been able to exist flew toward the Void Collective. Their hulls were made from matter that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Their weapons fired energy that couldn't be absorbed because it wasn't technically there. Their shields operated on harmonic frequencies that confused any scanning system. Captain So Min-yoon commanded the flagship, but decisions were made by consensus among the multi-species crew. Humans, Lyrans, geometric minds, ethereals, and even a few Krex warriors worked together in perfect coordination. "Contact in 30 seconds, announced Navigator Hyun-Soo Park, working alongside a Lyran harmonic specialist and a geometric mind calculator. The Void Collective fleet was massive beyond imagination. Millions of dark ships stretched across space like a living shadow. As the Paradox fleet approached, the enemy vessels began to adapt, shifting their forms to counter expected attacks. But the attacks never came. Instead, the Paradox fleet did something the Void Collective couldn't understand or counter. They began to sing. It was Kyle Wynn's idea, refined by human creativity and Lyran harmonic science. The entire fleet generated a resonance frequency that made their paradox matter unstable in precisely the right way. The unstable matter began to create pockets of impossible space around the Void Collective. The enemy ships tried to consume the paradox matter, but it couldn't be consumed. It existed and didn't exist at the same time. The Void Collective's absorption systems began to malfunction, creating feedback loops that spread throughout their fleet. "It's working," reported weapons specialist Dongmin Lee. "Their ships are destabilizing. They can't adapt to something that doesn't follow consistent physical laws." One by one, Void Collective ships began to tear themselves apart as their absorption systems tried to process matter that couldn't be processed. The massive fleet that had seemed unstoppable was defeating itself. But the real victory wasn't in the destruction of the enemy. It was in what the battle revealed about the new galactic civilization. "Look at us," said Captain So Min as she watched the enemy fleet collapse. 3 years ago, most of our species were afraid of each other. Now we're working together to defend the entire galaxy." The battle ended not with conquest, but with an unexpected discovery. The Void Collective weren't evil conquerors. They were refugees from a dying universe, trying to survive by consuming whatever they could find. When their ship stopped working, they sent a desperate communication requesting help. The response from the cooperative networks was immediate and unanimous: offer assistance. Within months, former Void Collective members were joining partnership treaties. Their bioship technology, combined with human creativity and alien innovations, led to new breakthroughs in living spacecraft. Instead of consuming matter, they learned to cultivate it. The galaxy had not only survived its greatest threat, but had turned enemies into partners. 1 year later, Ambassador Jin-Ho Park stood before the new Galactic Assembly. He was old now, his hair white and his face lined with years. But his eyes were bright as he looked out at representatives from over 60 species, all working together as equals. 4 years ago, you voted to restrict humanity's freedom, he said. You thought you were protecting the galaxy from dangerous human innovation. He paused, gesturing to the mixed crowds of humans, aliens, and even former Void Collective members working together throughout the assembly hall. Today we stand together not because anyone was forced to, but because we chose to. That choice made all the difference. In the audience, So Min-yoon sat with her mixed crew from the Paradox fleet. They were planning their next mission, exploring beyond the galaxy's edge, not as conquerors, but as representatives of a truly cooperative civilization. The young captain looked around at her friends and colleagues. Humans, Lyrans, geometric minds, ethereals, Krex warriors, and Void refugees, all working together toward common goals. Ready for the next adventure? She asked them. The response came, in a dozen different languages, but the meaning was universal. Yes. The galaxy had learned that true strength came not from controlling others, but from empowering them. Not from restricting innovation, but from sharing it freely. Not from building walls between species, but from building bridges. Humanity had departed from the Galactic Council and taken its power with them. But in the end, they had given the galaxy something far more valuable: the power to grow, dream, and reach for the stars together. As the new Galactic Assembly concluded its session, ships from dozens of species prepared to launch joint missions to explore new frontiers. The galaxy was no longer a collection of suspicious rivals, but a true community of partners. And at the heart of it all was a simple human idea: that the best way to solve any problem was to work together, dream bigger, and never give up hope. The future was bright, and it belonged to everyone. 6 months after humanity left the Galactic Council, the galaxy was dying. Nari Jaun stood in the ruins of what had been the ethereal collective's greatest city. The beings of pure energy who had once danced between the stars now struggled to hold their forms together for more than a few minutes. Their quantum field generators, which had maintained their civilization for thousands of years, were failing one by one. Nari was one of the few humans still working outside Earth's borders. She had been an engineer on an exchange program when the withdrawal happened. Now she found herself trying to help species that had voted to restrict her people. How much longer? Asked Whisper of Stars, one of the few ethereals still capable of communication. Nari looked at her scanner readings. Your quantum matrix will collapse completely within days. Without it, your people can't maintain physical coherence. The ethereal's form flickered with sadness. We did not know. We thought human technology was just additions to our own systems. We never realized it had become the foundation. Nari had seen this same story across the galaxy. The Nexus Collective's shared consciousness was fragmenting as their quantum communication networks failed. The Klaxon Empire's vast space cities were going dark as their power systems shut down. Even the mighty Vegan Trade Consortium was reduced to ships that could barely leave orbit. She sent regular reports to Qi Tai Huang, Earth's new ambassador to non-council species. The title was deliberately vague. Earth was no longer part of the official galactic community, but it still maintained contact with individual species who approached them directly. The ethereals are next, Nari reported during her weekly communication. After them, probably the geometric minds. Their calculation systems are based on human mathematical frameworks they never understood. Kite's voice came through clearly over the quantum link. Human communication systems still worked perfectly. Any word from the council itself? They're desperate. I'm hearing rumors that Queen Vexthera herself is coming to Earth. Nari was right. At that moment, the Klaxon Queen's personal ship was struggling through space toward the Sol system. What should have been a 2-day journey was taking 2 weeks. The Queen's massive dreadnought, once the pride of the Klaxon fleet, was limping along on emergency power. Queen Vexthera sat in her command chamber, watching status reports that grew worse by the hour. Her empire, which had spanned 200 star systems, was now isolated on individual worlds. Ships couldn't travel between stars. Communications took weeks instead of seconds. Her people were learning to live like primitives again. "Your Majesty," announced her aide, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth." The Queen's mandibles clicked with anticipation. Finally, the humans would offer to help. They would negotiate terms for restoring galactic technology. Instead, Sun Hee Kim's face appeared on the screen. As Earth's Director of Alien Relations, Sun Hee had been handling the flood of desperate requests from across the galaxy. "Your Majesty," Sun Hee said politely, "we've received your request for an audience. Earth will be happy to meet with you, but we want to be clear about the situation." Queen Vexithara straightened. "Name your terms, human." Sun Hee's expression remained calm. "There are no terms, Your Majesty. You're welcome to visit Earth as our guest. But if you're coming to demand that we restore your technology, you'll be disappointed." "Demand?" The Queen's voice rose. "You've sabotaged the entire galaxy. This is an act of war." "No, Your Majesty. This is an act of consequence." Sun Hee's tone stayed level. "For 2 centuries, humans shared their innovations freely. We never asked for credit or control. We simply gave our discoveries to help build a better galaxy." She paused, letting that sink in. "When you voted to restrict our development and take our future discoveries, you made a choice. You decided that human creativity belonged to the Council, not to humans. Now you're learning what the galaxy looks like without human creativity." The transmission ended, leaving Queen Vexithara staring at a blank screen. On Earth, the human leadership was meeting to discuss the galaxy's collapse. Jae-sung Park, son of former Ambassador Jin-ho Park, had recently been elected Prime Minister. The burden of humanity's decision rested heavily on his shoulders. "The reports are getting worse," said Defense Minister Dong Hyun-bae. "Entire species are facing extinction. The ethereals might be gone within months." "And the Council?" asked Jae-sung, completely powerless. "Most members can't even reach the station anymore. The few that do arrive find that life support systems are failing." Jae-sung looked around the table at Earth's leadership. These were the people who would decide humanity's next move. "Are we prepared to watch the galaxy die to make our point?" Minister of Science Yoo-jin Lee spoke up. "Mr. Prime Minister, we didn't cause this to punish them. We caused this because it was inevitable." She activated a holographic display showing the history of galactic technology. "Look at the pattern. Every major advance in the last 2 centuries came from human innovation. The aliens copied our work, but they never learned to innovate themselves." The display showed how alien technology had stagnated before human contact, then exploded with new developments after first contact. They became dependent on us without realizing it. Even if we had stayed in the Council, this collapse would have happened eventually. At least now they understand what they were really voting for. Dr. Seok Jin Choi, head of the Reconnection Initiative, leaned forward. "But we don't have to let them die. We can help them without giving up our independence." "How?" asked Jae-sung. "Partnership. Real partnership, not the master-servant relationship the Council wanted." Seok Jin's eyes were bright with possibility. "We teach them to innovate instead of just copying. We show them how to create instead of just consuming." Minister Bae looked skeptical. "After what they tried to do to us? Why should we trust them?" "Because," said Jae-sung slowly, "that's what humans do. We don't abandon people, even people who have wronged us." He stood and walked to the window overlooking Earth's capital. Ships filled the sky, traveling between orbital stations and lunar colonies. Human civilization was thriving without galactic restrictions. "Send a message to all species," he decided. Not to the Council, but to individual governments. Tell them Earth is open to bilateral partnerships, real partnerships between equals. Minister Bae raised an eyebrow. "And if they refuse? If they try to force us back into their restrictions?" Jae-sung smiled, and for a moment he looked exactly like his father. "Then they can keep enjoying their new primitive lifestyle. The choice is theirs." Across the galaxy, that message was received with a mixture of hope and fear. Some species, like the artistic Lyrans, immediately began drafting partnership proposals. Others, like the militaristic Krex Empire, refused to admit they needed human help at all. But as more ships failed and more worlds went dark, even the proudest species began to understand a simple truth. The galaxy needed humans more than humans needed the galaxy. The question was whether they could swallow their pride long enough to accept help on human terms.